Hello to the executive board, executive e-board of Phi Alpha. Again, congratulations on your election, being elected to the various positions that you've been elected to. One of the things that I wanted to do, I thought it was important for us to speak about the concept of leadership because you are about to embark on this important role over the next academic year, and I think it's important for us to briefly discuss that. I'm going to share with you a lecture that I did about a year ago, a PowerPoint, and uh, some of these thoughts that I'm about to share with you are combined thoughts from my years of leadership positions, both in the military and in the civilian world. And I want to to you in terms of speak with you regarding leadership, social workers as leaders. We know that social workers are champions, we know that social workers are advocates, but we also know that social workers are leaders. And I say that because throughout our course of history, social workers have always been on the forefront as leaders, advocates, and champions. And we have done that on behalf of our clients and the pursuit of truth over falsehoods, justice over injustice, and unjust systems and processes, and fairness over inequality and the debasement of human dignity and worth. So, as social workers, we pride ourselves on our ability to effectively help those we serve. This is our competence. I would say one of the six core values that we commit to when we undertake our role, along with committing to the values of service, social justice, and a person's dignity and worth. We also recognize the importance of human relationships and integrity. Because without that, in terms of leadership, it's about relationships. These values, by definition, not only require leadership on our part, but also for us to define leadership. And I'd like to begin first by briefly talking about the concept of fellowship. One of the things that I learned in the military was that leadership rests on the art of fellowship. And I have here a great quote from Aristotle. And Aristotle, one of the great Western thinkers in terms of philosophy, he states, and I quote, "One who has not learned to follow can never lead." And that is so true. All too often, individuals go into positions of leadership, and leadership is everything. And each of you have been elected to a position of leadership with different sets of core responsibilities. But most of that will be determined by the relationship and the culture that you create. So leadership is the foundation of everything, but a huge part of leadership is fellowship, even on behalf of those who've been elected as a president and vice president. So what is leadership? And I wanted to give us a definition. As scholars, we're going to use scholastic definitions as it relates to leadership and from a social work perspective. And here we're using Northhouse reference to 2015, and we can see it is a process, quote, a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. So by defining leadership as a process, rather than simply a trait or a set of characteristics, I believe we are acknowledging that leadership is a transactional event that occurs between the leader and followers that lead to a transformational outcome. All too often, we may have this perception that if I am strong-willed, if I have these certain traits mean that I will make a good leader. And that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes those are the individuals who can be destructive and include toxic energy and into the process because we're working as a team. So here we see that by defining it as a process, we recognize that leadership is a transactional event that occurs between the leader and followers that lead to a transformational outcome. At the end of the day, whatever we're working on, leaders must inspire those who are following. If you're not doing that, if you are becoming frustrated and flustered about every little situation and shows up in the meeting, shows up whenever there's adversity, that toxic energy, people will read into that and nothing will get done. So examples of good leaders that I would like you to look into on your own are the following individuals: Mary Church Terrell, George Edmund Haynes, Lester Blackwell Granger, and Francis Perkins, and obviously, last but not least, I should say, is Whitney M. Young Jr. So let's talk about the 3 P's of leadership. And we get this from Whitney M. Young Jr., who was the first dean of Clark Atlanta University. At that time it was known as Atlanta University. He talked about the 3 P's of leadership. And those 3 P's are passionate about people, pragmatic in thinking and problem solving, that is to think outside the box, but I would like to go back to being pragmatic about people. If you don't like people, or if you lack the ability to respect differences in opinion, or you lack the ability to work with individuals, then you're probably not going to make a good leader. So one has to be passionate about people. 2, pragmatic in thinking and problem solving. We have to be solution focused and strength based. There's nothing perfect. If so, this world that we live in would be perfect. There would not be the issues that exist in this world, and we would all just be living in perfect harmony. We recognize that that is not the case. So therefore, a huge part of leadership is thinking outside the box to solve problems. Problems exist. Our role in leadership is to find ways, solutions to solve problems. And then practical in finding those solutions in complex problems. And I think that goes back to what I just mentioned, that there will be issues, but we need to think outside the box. One of our mottos says, what? Find a way or make one. But we should do that ethically, but we should always be thinking about what are the solutions here. So we were all saying we're going to present or get together to do this project on a Monday. We recognize we have some individuals that have classes at a particular time. We can't make it at this time. Well, let's present options. Let's present 1 or 2, 3, maybe 4 options. Then let's refine those and present people with the best options available on the table. That's how we come to practical solutions. So when we engage in leadership practices which are rooted in the concepts of servant leadership, transformational, and visionary leadership, we enhance our leadership abilities. Because first of all, leaders are servants of the people. All too often, again, as I've said, we've had this misconception about leaders, and people oftentimes run into leadership without understanding you're a servant of the people. And oftentimes in leadership, it can be lonely because there are times when individuals may fail you. They may not come through, but guess what? You are still responsible for seeing this project through. And you have to have the wherewithal and the fortitude to understand that there are times when you may be alone in this process. Maybe you and two other people, but you can't take it personal. You ask for that position as a leader. So leadership, first and foremost, deals with being a servant. So our leadership for Phi Alpha has to be rooted in servant leadership. We have to be transformational in terms of how we deal with the various student bodies, undergraduate, graduate students, and the wider university body. And we must be visionary in our thought process. We enhance our leadership abilities to face old and emergent issues from a strategic view. Being attuned to organizational goals and outcomes while selflessly transforming follows into future leaders equipped to lead in changing, value-laden, complex environment. So we recognize that as leaders and as your advisor, my expectation is that you as leaders, that you will embrace and work on these concepts, because this is what will transform and lead Phi Alpha to the next level as we gear up for the academic year 2019-2020 and you being inducted and then sworn in to your positions. You are elected. You have a president-elect, a vice president-elect, treasurer-elect, parliamentarian-elect, secretary-elect. So you are in those positions, and you begin to assume the roles and responsibilities of that. So one of the things I've said, when we inspire others, our people work at their best. They will take on big challenges. They will become self-critical and are accountable for the quality and results. When inspired, people are committed to making others better. The ripple effect continues to inspire individuals and communities across the world. So when we inspire our members, when we inspire students, when we inspire other members of Phi Alpha, individuals will want to be a part of the organization. So we have to create a culture that embraces that concept. So in closing, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Whitney M. Young, and I thought he was an outstanding individual, outstanding leader. And he says here, I am not anxious to be the loudest voice or the most popular, but I would like to think that at a crucial moment, I was an effective voice of the voiceless and effective hope of the hopeless. So Phi Alpha leadership, I leave you with that. I look forward to being your academic advisor and your advisor, I should say, of Phi Alpha. I know it's going to be a good year, and I am here to support and mentor each of you in your different capacity and to challenge you to live up to greatness and to embrace the concept of being a servant leader. Thank you.